Part 2. The Truth Beneath the Mask. Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, the bunker known as Site Zero came alive for the first time in 3 centuries. Lights flickered on in corridors that had been dark since the day humanity joined the Galactic Concorde. Machines that had been sleeping began to hum with power. Fleet Admiral Marcus Okonkwo stood in the central command room, watching screens fill with data. He was 62 years old, with gray hair and dark skin marked by decades of military service. His entire life had been preparation for this moment. His father had prepared for it too, and his grandfather before him. "A Crucible protocol confirmed," announced the AI system. "All assets are activating. Time to full deployment. 14 hours. Beside Marcus stood Director Helena Vasquez, head of the Terran Intelligence Service. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "The Concorde fleet will arrive in approximately 36 hours, she said. "We have time, but not much. We have enough." Marcus turned to face the massive display screen that dominated the room. "Show me our true strength." The screen changed. What appeared made several officers gasp, even though they had known this moment was coming. They had trained for it. They had believed in it. But seeing it with their own eyes was something else entirely. The Oort cloud, that vast region of ice and rock at the edge of the solar system, was not as empty as the galaxy believed. Hidden among the frozen debris were shipyards the size of small planets. For 300 years, humanity had been building in secret. Every resource that officially went to their modest space program was actually just a fraction of their true effort. The rest went here, to the hidden fleet. 50,000 warships. Each one was larger than anything the Concorde had ever built. Each one carried weapons that used principles of physics the hegemony had declared impossible. "The evacuation is nearly complete," Helena reported. "All colonies have been cleared. Earth's civilian population has been moved to the shelter networks. The Concorde will find empty worlds." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good. I want them to think they've won. I want them to feel confident right until the moment we spring the trap." The story of how humanity reached this point was not taught in schools. It was not written in any book that the Concorde might find. It existed only in the memories of a select few and in files buried so deep that no alien intelligence had ever discovered them. 300 years ago, humanity had not been discovered by peaceful explorers. The truth was far darker. A hegemony scout fleet had arrived at Earth with one purpose: to evaluate humanity for enslavement. They scanned the planet, studied the population, and prepared their chains. They never got the chance to use them. The first battle of humanity's secret war lasted 72 hours. The hegemony scouts had expected to find primitives with simple weapons. Instead, they encountered a species that had been preparing for alien contact for over a century. Earth's nations had put aside their differences decades before. They had built weapons in secret, hidden beneath oceans and inside mountains. They had prepared for the worst. The scout fleet was destroyed. Every ship, every crew member, every piece of evidence. Humanity captured their technology, studied it, and learned. They discovered the true nature of the galaxy, a vast empire built on fear and submission. They understood immediately what would happen if the hegemony learned of their resistance. So they made a different choice when the Concorde sent a diplomatic vessel to make first contact years later. Humanity played the role of primitives perfectly. They acted frightened and grateful. They accepted membership in the Concorde with humble thanks. They became the quiet species that everyone underestimated. And in secret, they prepared for the war they knew would someday come. "Admiral," a young officer called out, "we're receiving reports from the deep stations. All fleets are moving to designated positions." Marcus walked to the tactical display. It showed the solar system in perfect detail. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid. And now it showed something else. The true defensive network that humanity had built. Weapons platforms hidden inside asteroids. Stealth satellites capable of redirecting enemy fire. Gravity generators that could tear ships apart at the molecular level. And at the center of it all, the fleet waiting, patient, ready. "The Concorde thinks we're weak," Marcus said quietly. "They've thought so for 300 years. They look at our public ships and laugh. They see our small colonies and feel superior." He turned to face his officers. "They have no idea that every year, every month, every day of those 3 centuries was spent getting ready for this fight." Helena stepped forward. "Sir, there's something else you should see." She activated another screen. "Intelligence reports from our agents in Concorde space. The other species, the ones the hegemony has conquered, they're watching. They know something is happening. Some of them have been helping us in secret." The screen showed messages intercepted from a dozen worlds. Resistance movements that humanity had quietly supported for generations. Technology shared through hidden channels. Plans made in whispers across the stars. "When the hegemony falls," Helena continued, "it won't just be our victory. Half the galaxy is waiting for someone to strike the first blow." Marcus looked at the clock. 34 hours until the Concorde fleet arrived. 34 hours until 3 centuries of lies came to an end. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Humanity has been patient long enough. It's time to show the galaxy who we really are." In shipyards across the outer system, engines roared to life. Weapons systems came online. Crews took their stations on vessels they had trained on their entire lives. The sleeping giant was finally waking up, and the Concorde Armada, still confident, still blind to the truth, continued its journey toward Sol. 2 million ships flew toward what they believed would be easy slaughter. They were about to discover how wrong they had been. Part 1. The silence before the storm. Ambassador Yara Chun had traveled across the stars many times, but she never got used to the sight of the eternal meridian. The space station was larger than some moons. It hung in the darkness like a metal flower, its countless lights blinking like stars trapped in steel. This was the heart of the Galactic Concorde, where 4,000 species came together to talk, trade, and pretend they were equals. Yar knew they were not equals. The Vethkai hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 80,000 years. They were tall creatures with gray skin and eyes like black pools. They moved slowly, spoke rarely, and killed without hesitation. Every other species existed because the Vethkai allowed it. Humanity had joined the Concorde 300 years ago. In that time, they had been careful. They built small colonies. They made modest ships. They smiled at every insult and bowed at every demand. The other species called them the quiet ones, or sometimes the frightened apes. Yara had learned to accept such words without showing anger. Today she had been called to the Grand Assembly. Her assistant, a young man named David, walked beside her through the massive corridors. He looked nervous. "Do you know why they summoned us?" he asked. "Trade negotiations, most likely," Yara said. "Perhaps they want to increase the tariffs on our exports again." David nodded, but his eyes showed doubt. Yara felt it too. Something was wrong. The corridors were too empty. The few aliens they passed looked at them strangely, with expressions that might have been pity. The Grand Assembly chamber was a circular room, so large that clouds sometimes formed near its ceiling. Thousands of seats rose in rings around a central platform. Today, every seat was filled. Representatives from every species in the Concorde had gathered. Yara had never seen the chamber so full. A Vethkai elder named Kethver stood on the central platform. He was ancient, his gray skin marked with the ritual scars of 100 conquered worlds. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the room without any need for amplification. "The Assembly has voted," he announced. The The decision is unanimous. Protocol Omega has been invoked. A murmur ran through the crowd. Yara felt her blood turn cold. She knew what Protocol Omega meant. Every diplomat knew. It was the Concord's final solution for species deemed too dangerous to exist. The target species, Kethver continued, is humanity. The chamber fell silent. Yara stood frozen. Around her, thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the small human delegation. Our predictive algorithms have analyzed human development patterns, Kethver explained. His voice showed no emotion. Within 10,000 years, humanity will possess the capability to challenge hegemony dominance. This cannot be permitted. The human homeworld and all colonies will be cleansed. The species will be ended. David grabbed Yara's arm. This can't be real, he whispered. We've done nothing wrong. We've followed every rule. Yara said nothing. Her mind was racing, but her face remained calm. 300 years of diplomatic training had taught her to hide her true feelings. Kethver raised one long gray hand. The human ambassador will be given 1 hour to send a final message to her people. This is a courtesy we extend to all condemned species. After this, the extermination fleet will depart. The numbers appeared on the screens around the chamber. 2 million warships. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Enough firepower to burn 1,000 worlds. Guards escorted Yara to a small communication room. They gave her privacy, as was tradition. Through the window, she could see the fleet gathering. Ships of every size and design from every vassal species, all pointed toward the same destination, Earth, Sol, home. David stood beside her, tears running down his face. What do we do? What can we possibly say? Yara sat down at the communication console. Her hands were steady. Her heart beat slowly. She had been prepared for this moment her entire life, though she had prayed it would never come. I need to send a message in Old Terran, she said. The language we used before first contact. Can you ensure the encryption holds? David nodded, confused. Yes, but why? The Concord will try to translate it. Let them try. Yara typed 2 words into the console. Just 2 words that would make no sense to any alien listener. 2 words that would change everything. Crucible Protocol. She pressed send. The message traveled at faster than light speed, bouncing through relay stations across dozens of light years. It reached Earth in seconds. Kethver entered the room shortly after. Your message has been delivered. Your people will have time to make peace with their existence before the end comes. This is mercy, Ambassador. I hope you understand. Yar stood and faced him. I understand perfectly, Elder. You have made your decision based on what we might become in 10,000 years. You have decided to kill 8 billion people because of a prediction, correct? Then I have only one thing to say to you. Yara's voice was quiet but firm. You should have made sure your prediction was accurate. Kethver's black eyes showed a flicker of something. Perhaps curiosity. Perhaps the first hint of doubt he had felt in centuries. But he said nothing and left the room far away on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Something was waking up. In a bunker buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, a red light began to blink. It had been dark for 300 years. Technicians ran to their stations. Generals were pulled from their beds. Presidents and prime ministers received encrypted calls that made their faces go pale and then hard with determination. The message spread through secret channels that the Concord had never detected. It reached hidden bases on the dark side of the moon. It traveled to stations hidden in the asteroid belt. It found its way to shipyards in the Oort cloud, where massive doors that had never opened began to slide apart. In the old languages of Earth, there was a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. For 300 years, humanity had spoken very softly indeed. Now the galaxy was about to see the stick. The Concorde fleet departed for Sol, with 2 million ships and absolute confidence in their victory. They expected to find a frightened species begging for mercy. They expected easy slaughter and quick extermination. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Part 3. The Message Supreme Commander Vethrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and watched the stars blur past. He had commanded fleets for 4,000 years. He had personally overseen the extinction of 340 species. Each one had begged. Each one had died. The humans would be no different. The Concorde Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 2 million ships spread across the void like a swarm of metal insects. Their weapons were charged. Their crews were eager. Victory was certain, but something was wrong. "Report," Vethrak ordered. His voice was deep and cold, like stones grinding together. His sensor officer, a nervous creature from a vassal species, checked his readings 3 times before answering. "Commander, the system appears to be empty." "Empty?" "Yes, Commander. No orbital stations. No ships. No communications. The colonies on Mars and the outer moons show no life signs. Earth itself." The officer paused, confusion clear in his voice. "Earth appears to be abandoned." Vethrak's black eyes narrowed. This was not right. 8 billion humans could not simply vanish. They had no ships capable of mass evacuation. They had nowhere to go. His intelligence had confirmed this. The humans were trapped in their home system, waiting to die. "Scan again," he commanded. "They are hiding somewhere." For 3 hours, the fleet searched. They scanned every planet, every moon, every asteroid. They found nothing but empty buildings and silent machines. It was as if humanity had simply walked away from their entire civilization. Then they found the beacon. It floated alone in the space between Earth and Mars, a small metal cylinder broadcasting on all frequencies. Vethrak ordered it brought aboard. His technicians examined it carefully, checking for traps or weapons. They found none. It was simply a message device. "Play it," Vethrak commanded. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed a human woman in formal military dress. Vethrak recognized her immediately. Ambassador Yara Chen, the one they had allowed to send her final message. She must have escaped during the chaos that followed the announcement. The woman's face was calm. Her voice was steady. She spoke slowly, as if explaining something simple to a child. "Greetings to the Supreme Commander and the assembled fleet of the Galactic Concorde. My name is Yara Chen, and I speak for all of humanity. If you are watching this message, you have arrived in our system expecting to find us defenseless and afraid. I must apologize for the disappointment." Several officers on the bridge shifted uncomfortably. There was something in the woman's voice that did not match her words. She did not sound afraid. She sounded sorry for them. "For 300 years, we have played a role," Yara continued. "We acted weak because weakness was survival. We built small ships and modest colonies because that is what you expected to see. We smiled at your insults and bowed to your demands because it served our purpose. But masks can be removed." The hologram changed. It showed images that made no sense to Vethrak. Massive shipyards hidden in clouds of ice and rock. Fleets of warships larger than anything the hegemony had ever built. Weapons that bent space itself. "You came here to exterminate us," Yara said. "You brought 2 million ships because you believed it would be more than enough. You predicted that in 10,000 years, we might become a threat. Let me tell you something about human nature, Commander. When someone tells us we will be killed for what we might become, we tend to become it much faster. Vethrak felt something he had not experienced in 3,000 years. His hearts were beating faster. His hands were cold. It took him a moment to recognize the sensation. It was fear. Every colony, every station, every civilian, we evacuated them months ago through methods you cannot detect, Yara explained. You are not the hunters here, Commander. You are the prey. There is an old human saying, if you strike at a king, you must kill him. You struck. You missed. The woman leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to look directly at Vethrak. You've just sealed your doom. The hologram flickered and died. For a moment, there was complete silence on the bridge. Then the sensor officer screamed. Contacts. Contacts appearing everywhere. Thousands, no, tens of thousands. They're coming out of nowhere. Vethrak spun to face the tactical display. His blood ran cold at what he saw. The empty space around his fleet was no longer empty. Ships were appearing in a perfect sphere around the armada declocking, emerging from hiding places that should not have existed. They were enormous, each one dwarfing even his flagship. Their hulls were black as the void, and their weapons glowed with energy signatures his systems could not identify. All ships, battle formations. Vethrak roared. Open fire immediately. The Concorde fleet responded with everything they had. Millions of weapons fired at once, filling space with light and death. The barrage should have annihilated anything in its path. The human ships did not even slow down. Their shields absorbed fire that should have destroyed plants. Their weapons struck back with precision that seemed impossible. Concorde vessels exploded by the hundreds, then by the thousands. The tactical display turned red with destruction. The Battle of Sol had begun. It would last 4 hours. In those 4 hours, the Concorde lost 1.7 million ships. The pride of the hegemony, the terror of 1,000 conquered worlds, was reduced to burning wreckage. Humanity lost 847 vessels. When it was over, only one hegemony ship remained, the Eternal Judgment, kept alive deliberately. Vethrak stood alone on his ruined bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew and the ashes of his pride. A communication screen flickered to life. A human face appeared. Admiral Marcus Okonkwo. Run home, Commander, Marcus said quietly. Tell your masters what you saw here today. Tell them we are coming. And tell them this. We could have killed you too. Remember that we chose not to. Remember it well. The screen went dark. Vethrak, Supreme Commander of the mightiest fleet in galactic history, turned his broken ship toward hegemony space. He had come to destroy a species. Now he carried a message back to his people, a message of doom. The humans were coming. Part 4. The long march home. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The great extermination fleet had been destroyed. 2 million ships gone. The hegemony's military power, built over 80,000 years, broken in a single afternoon, and the humans were advancing. On the hegemony capital world, the ruling council met in emergency session. They had not faced a true threat in so long that they had almost forgotten how. Their solution, as always, was force. They ordered every vassal species to provide ships and soldiers for a second armada. They demanded total obedience from the conquered worlds. But something had changed. On a dozen worlds, the vassal species refused. They had watched the Battle of Sol through secret channels. They had seen the mighty Concorde fleet burn. And they had realized something that changed everything. The hegemony could be beaten. Rebellions broke out everywhere. Species that had been pacified for thousands of years suddenly remembered their anger. Underground movements that humanity had quietly supported for centuries finally showed themselves. The Concorde, which had seemed eternal and unbreakable, began to crack apart. Admiral Marcus Okonkwo watched the reports from his command ship, the Terra's Fury. The vessel was larger than some space stations, built for a war that had finally come. Around him, the Terran expeditionary fleet moved through space that no human warship had ever entered openly. Another system has declared independence, reported Helena Vasquez, now serving as his chief of intelligence. That makes 47 in the past month alone. And the hegemony's response? They're stretched too thin. They can't suppress the rebellions and defend against us at the same time. They're being forced to choose. Marcus nodded slowly. This was exactly what humanity had planned. For 300 years, Terran agents had been working in secret, sharing forbidden technology with oppressed species, funding resistance movements, teaching tactics and strategy to those who dreamed of freedom. The seeds had been planted long ago. Now, they were blooming far away, on a world called Kethvora Prime. A young officer named Talvin watched his civilization fall apart. He had served the hegemony faithfully his entire life. He had believed in its power and its rightness. Now, that belief was crumbling. The humans had arrived in orbit 3 days ago. Talvin had expected them to bombard the planet, to kill everyone as the hegemony would have done. Instead, they had sent a message, a simple offer translated into every language. We are not here as conquerors. We offer you a choice. Join us as equals in building something new, or remain neutral and live in peace. We will force no one. We will enslave no one. We are not the hegemony. Talvin had not believed it at first. But then the human ships had landed relief supplies in the poorest districts of the capital city. They had provided medical care to anyone who needed it. They had asked for nothing in return. On the third day, the planetary government voted to surrender. When the human ambassador arrived to accept, she was a small woman with kind eyes, who spoke gently and treated even former enemies with respect. Talvin watched her meet with his leaders. He heard her promise that there would be no mass punishments, no revenge. War criminals would face trial. Everyone else would be forgiven. Why? He finally asked her. We were part of the force that tried to kill your people. Why don't you hate us? The ambassador, her name was Dr. Sarah Oileron, looked at him with something like sadness. We could hate you, she admitted. It would be easy. But hate is a poison that destroys the one who holds it. We spent 300 years preparing for this war. We could spend another 300 taking revenge for every wrong done to us. But what would that make us? She gestured to the window, where human soldiers were helping clear rubble from a bombed building. We want to build a galaxy where no species lives in fear, where the strong protect the weak instead of crushing them. If we become just another hegemony, we've lost even if we win every battle. Talvin thought about this for a long time after she left. Back on the Terra's Fury, Marcus received word that the hegemony had retreated to their core systems. They were pulling back everything, preparing for a final defense of their homeworld. Intelligence reported that they were desperate enough to use their ultimate weapon. The Void Bomb, Helena said grimly. A stellar-scale explosive that triggers a cascade reaction through hyperspace. If they detonate it, everything within 1,000 light-years will be destroyed, including their own worlds. They would kill themselves just to take us with them. They've ruled for 80,000 years. They cannot imagine a universe where they don't rule. Death is preferable to irrelevance. Marcus closed his eyes. 8 billion human lives had almost been erased because of a prediction. Now trillions of lives across hundreds of worlds hung in the balance because of pride. How long until they can fire it? Once they begin charging, perhaps 6 hours. And we're 2 days from their homeworld at maximum speed. The math was simple. If the hegemony chose destruction, humanity could not stop them in time. All the power they had built, all the secrets they had kept, all the centuries of preparation, None of it could outrun light itself. Marcus stood alone in his quarters that night, looking at the stars. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought in the first secret battle against the Hegemony scouts. He thought about his father, who had spent his life building the hidden fleet. He thought about his own children, now safe in shelters beneath Earth's mountains. He thought about what it meant to be human. The next morning, he called his senior officers together. "We're going to offer them terms," he announced. "Unconditional surrender. War crimes trials for leadership. But mercy for their people. Protection for their culture and history." "Sir," one officer objected, "they tried to exterminate us. They've murdered thousands of species over 80,000 years. Why should we offer mercy?" Marcus looked at him calmly. "Because if we don't, we become them. And I didn't spend my life preparing to save humanity just to watch it lose its soul." The offer was sent. The Hegemony Ruling Council received it, discussed it for less than an hour, and rejected it. Then they began charging the void bomb. Reports came in as the Terran fleet raced toward the Hegemony homeworld. The weapon was powering up. The countdown had begun. In 6 hours, 1,000 light years of space would become a tomb. Marcus gave an order that shocked everyone who heard it. "All ships, reduce speed. Pull back the safe distance. Let them fire, Admiral." Helena stared at him. "If we pull back, we can't stop the weapon." Marcus smiled a sad, tired smile. "We're not going to stop it, Director. We're going to let it fail." He would not explain further. As his fleet slowed and the Hegemony homeworld grew closer on the sensors, Marcus Okonkwo simply waited. Either humanity had truly prepared for everything, or the galaxy would die. In 6 hours, they would all find out. Part 5. Terra's final transmission. The void bomb fired. Every sensor in the Hegemony system recorded the moment. A beam of pure energy, brighter than 1,000 suns, lanced outward from the weapon platform orbiting the homeworld. It pierced the barrier between normal space and hyperspace, beginning the cascade reaction that would consume everything within 1,000 light years. The Hegemony Ruling Council watched with grim satisfaction. If they could not rule the galaxy, no one would. The humans had won every battle, but they would not survive this. Nothing would survive this. For 3 seconds, the cascade built. Energy spiraled through hyperspace, gathering strength, preparing to unleash destruction beyond imagination. Then it simply stopped. The beam flickered. The cascade collapsed. The void bomb, the most terrible weapon ever created, fizzled out like a candle in the wind. On the Hegemony homeworld, the ruling council stared at their screens in disbelief. This was impossible. The physics were certain. The weapon could not fail. A communication signal cut through their confusion. A human face appeared on every screen in the system. Admiral Marcus Okonkwo, looking calm and perhaps a little tired. "You didn't really think we'd spend 300 years preparing and forget about your biggest weapon, did you?" he asked quietly. "We've known about the void bomb for 250 years. We've had dampeners in place throughout Concord space for the last century, hidden where you'd never think to look. Your weapon was neutralized before this war even began." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some leaders screamed orders that no one followed. Others simply sat in shock, unable to process what had happened. Their final option, their ultimate victory through mutual destruction, had been taken from them. Marcus continued speaking. "You have no fleet. Your weapon doesn't work. Your vassal species have abandoned you. This is over. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Fight on, and you will lose everything." The Hegemony had never surrendered in 80,000 years. They had never faced an enemy who could truly defeat them. Now that enemy was here, and they had no answer. The ruling council fractured. Hardliners demanded a ground war, a fight to the last soldier. Moderates argued for surrender, for saving what could be saved. The argument turned violent. Within hours, the hegemony was fighting itself, and then the humans did something no one expected. They helped the moderates. Terran ships provided cover for those who wanted peace. Human soldiers protected hegemony civilians from their own extremist defenders. Medical teams landed to treat the wounded on both sides. Food and supplies were distributed without asking who had supported which faction. The Civil War ended quickly after that. The hardliners found themselves alone, abandoned by their own people. One by one, they were captured or killed. The moderates took control and formally surrendered to the Terran expeditionary fleet. The war was overdone in the months that followed. The galaxy transformed. The Galactic Concord was dissolved. In its place rose the Galactic Compact, a new alliance built not on fear and domination, but on genuine equality. Every species had a voice. Every world had a vote. No one would be exterminated for what they might become. War crimes trials were held. The leaders who had ordered extinctions and enslavements faced justice. Some were executed. Many were imprisoned. But there were no mass punishments. No genocide in return for genocide. The Vethkai people survived, diminished but alive, given the chance to become something better than they had been. 3 years after the war's end, a ceremony was held at the site of the Battle of Sol. A memorial station had been built there, floating among the wreckage of 2 million ships. Representatives from 5,000 species gathered to mark the anniversary. Chancellor Yara Chun, the former ambassador who had sent the message that started everything, stood at the podium. She was older now, her hair turning gray, but her eyes were still sharp. She looked out at the gathered crowds, at humans and Vethkai, and hundreds of other species standing together. 300 years ago, she began, humanity was discovered by a galaxy that valued only power. We were told that the universe was cruel, that only the strong survived, that mercy was weakness. We were told that someday we would be destroyed because of what we might become. She paused, letting the silence stretch. We could have believed them. We could have become what they feared, conquerors, destroyers, another empire built on bones. We had the power. After 3 centuries of preparation, we had more than enough power to burn the galaxy clean and start over with humanity alone. Her voice softened. We chose differently. We chose to remember that strength without compassion is just brutality. We chose to believe that the universe did not have to be cruel. We chose to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm, to offer hands instead of fists. She gestured to the crowd before her. Look around you. Humans standing beside the species that tried to kill us. Former enemies sharing meals and raising children together. This is what humanity fought for. Not domination, not revenge, just this, the chance for everyone to live without fear. The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for all who had died, human and alien alike. Then the crowds dispersed, returning to their ships and their worlds, and their new lives in a galaxy finally at peace. But the story of Terra's final transmission was not quite over. 10 years after the war, a small girl played in the gardens of the memorial station. She was human, with dark hair and bright, curious eyes. Her name was May, and she was 7 years old. She chased butterflies between the flowering trees, laughing at their colors. Another child joined her, a young Vethkai, smaller than she was, with gray skin and eyes that were just beginning to darken to their adult black. His name was Keth, and he was her best friend. They played together among the flowers while their parents watched. May's mother had served in the Terran fleet. Keth's father had been a junior officer in the Hegemony Navy. They had once been enemies. Now they sat together, sharing food and stories while their children ran through the grass. Do you think they'll remember? May's mother asked. When they're grown, do you think they'll remember what it was like before? Keth's father shook his head slowly. I hope not. I hope this is all they ever know, playing together, growing up together. I hope the old hatred dies with our generation. May caught a butterfly and showed it to Keth. He studied it with serious eyes, then smiled, the expression his species had learned from humans. Together they let it go, watching it flutter away into the endless garden. Far away, in the archives of the Galactic Compact, a message was preserved for all future generations. It had been broadcast to every world at the end of the war, and it would be transmitted again every year on the anniversary. Forever. It was Terra's final transmission to the cosmos. We are humanity. We came from a small blue world in an unremarkable system. We were told we were weak. We were told we were doomed. We were told the universe was cruel and only the cruel survive. We chose to believe otherwise. We are still here. We remember what we survived, and we will never let it happen to anyone else. This is our promise to the stars. This is who we chose to be. The message ended there. But the story of a species that refused to become monsters, that fought and bled and sacrificed for the chance to build something better. That story was just beginning, and in gardens and schools and homes across 1,000 worlds, children played together, never knowing how close they had come to never existing at all. That was humanity's true victory, not the war. The peace.